Hi, beautiful soul. This is Paris Stu here. I'm a life coach to highly sensitive people. If you're wondering if you're a highly sensitive person and you want to find out, book a complimentary session with me. The link is in the description below. If you like the content, please subscribe to my channel and like my videos. So today let's explore 12 signs that you might be a highly sensitive person. Number one, you get easily overwhelmed. So as a highly sensitive person, because we take in a lot from our environment and because we feel very deeply, we might get overwhelmed very easily. And that's just because there's a lot that we're processing. We process things at a very deep level and we take in a lot of information from our environment and we feel very deeply. So like, for example, watching a movie and the movie is very moving, very emotional, it's a drama, then we will feel a lot during that movie, and that's at the end of the movie we might get drained. There are definitely ways that we could help ourselves with not getting overstimulated or overwhelmed. Somatic practices is the number one way that I teach my clients to regulate their nervous system and to bring their nervous system into alignment so that they're in the rest and digest state. And then number two is you feel emotions deeply. So that means that you might cry easily. You might be very emotional when you see something that's beautiful, or something a painting, for example, or a piece of music that really touches your heart. You will get moved by it very easily. Number three is you think deeply and reflect constantly. So you might be, for example, you might react to something that's going on in your life, and then you'll kind of ruminate about it. And it's not in a bad way. I know that rumination can be considered something that's negative, but in this instance, it's actually not negative. It's good because you're thinking about it, you're replaying the situation in your head, and you're trying to analyze it from very different perspectives and different angles because you want to understand it better. It's all about our depth of processing, right? We want to understand things at a very deep level. And until it makes sense to us, we're going to keep on thinking about it and playing different scenarios and different ways that it could go until it's clear for us. And then number four is you have a very strong sense of justice. This is one of my favorite traits about being highly sensitive, is that we're about right and wrong. Not just for ourselves, but also we have a sense of justice for other people, especially if they're an underdog. So we definitely want to be somebody's voice if in the moment they don't have a voice of their own. We want to help them. We want to make sure that justice is served. Number five is you notice subtleties others miss. This could be subtleties in the room. You walk into a room and something in the room has changed. For example, a light has been moved from one room to the other, or there's a new piece of art in the home that's pretty subtle, and most people don't notice it, but you will notice it because you're a highly sensitive person. Or it could be in a person. It could be that somebody, you see subtle changes in their face or in their body language, and you'll pick those things up, which is super, super helpful because then this is knowledge, right? Knowledge is power, and you could do something once you have knowledge. But if you don't have that knowledge, there's nothing you can do. You can't take any actions, right? So this is just information that most people will not have access to that you do as a highly sensitive person that can help you in your life. And then number six is art, music, and nature moves you profoundly. So you could be listening to a piece of music and it just moves you to your soul, and you can really feel it in every ounce of your body, and it's so beautiful. And it just gives you this sense of aliveness, and just, that life is so beautiful, and you're so lucky to be experiencing this. like the most recent experience that I could think of is I went to a concert with a friend. We went to see Shakira in concert, and we had booked the tickets way in advance. And that day, unfortunately, I wasn't really doing that well. And I was wondering, how am I going to go to this concert where I'm not doing well? And, I was planning to go with a really good friend of mine, and I wanted her to have fun, and I didn't want my low energy rub off on her. And so we go to the concert, and oh my God, it's like somebody switched the light and completely changed my state of being. I went to being like not doing well to all of a sudden being in this very, very happy, joyful state of being. And it was all because of the music. It was so moving and so touching. And just being in that environment was like, wow, how lucky am I to be surrounded by these people that are just living life to the fullest. And number 7, you hate conflict and criticism. So the reason that highly sensitive people hate conflict is because we are just peacemakers. We want everyone to be in a joyful state, and it's hard for us to see conflict because we feel so deeply, so that conflict really resonates with us. It cuts us deep. We can't ignore it. We can't just brush it off. We really feel it, and especially if it's pretty intense. And then when it comes to criticism, the reason that we can't stand criticism, even if it's constructive criticism, is because we're perfectionists at heart. And I myself have tried not to be a perfectionist, and I've worked on myself for many, many years, but we're born perfectionists. And because we're always caring about what we're doing, how we're doing it, we're very conscientious people. So we are already doing our very best. So if someone criticizes us, then it really hurts because we're like, really? Like, I'm trying my best. I'm doing my best. I actually am really aware of everything that I'm doing, and everything that I'm doing is purposeful. I am conscientious about every action, every word that I utter. So when someone criticizes it, even if it's a minor criticism, it hurts a lot, especially when you're a child. So if you have a highly sensitive child, you really want to be mindful not to criticize them. And this is not coddling them in any way. It's just that you can teach them in a more positive ways than criticism. It just works better. They will listen to it more. They're going to be more receptive to it. Number 8 is you need more downtime than most people. And the reason for that is because your depth of processing, and you feel very deeply, and you get overstimulated. There's a lot of things that you're picking up that a lot of people don't pick up on because you process things at a very deep level. You observe things that a lot of people don't even notice. So you're taking a lot from the moment you wake up till the time that you go to bed. You're taking in a lot more than non-highly sensitive people. So this will, obviously, it's just logical that you would get overwhelmed or overstimulated. And this is why you want to do those somatic practices that we talked about. It's very important for you to take time to regulate your nervous system and bring it into a rest and digest state. So, and that's the best way of doing that is through somatic practice. And then number 9 is people often confide in you. And the reason for this is because you create a safe environment for people, because your caring nature, your kindness, your thoughtfulness, your conscientiousness, that's all obvious to everyone around you, and you don't even have to do anything. Just your presence is calming for people, and just your presence gives that sense of safety to people, and your energy as well. And so people confide in you, even strangers. I remember, like, when I was younger, I would always wonder why people come and sit next to me, and like when I was by myself sitting at a restaurant, for example, or at a ski resort, I would be sitting at a table by myself, and then before I would know it, other people would join me, and then shortly thereafter they would start confiding in me with what's going on in their life, and it was pretty personal. And I always wondered why that's happening to me. And then when I found out that I'm a highly sensitive person, it all made sense. Number 10, you struggle as a sensitive child. So the reason you struggled as a sensitive child is because most likely, well, there are many elements, but most likely you were in a household that didn't understand high sensitivity, and therefore they didn't know how to parent you as a highly sensitive child. And then also when you would go to school, for example, you would see that other kids are not like you. So you would see that you're not like others, but you wouldn't understand what's different about them, and there's also this sense of, like, for example, as a child, you might have gotten overwhelmed or felt unsafe if your teachers were not very kind-hearted, nurturing types of teachers. That would have overwhelmed you, and then you would shut down because you most likely wouldn't speak very much, if at all, because you felt unsafe. So that's very common. That type of thing happens a lot with highly sensitive children, is if their sense of safety is compromised, then they shut down. And number one way of shutting down as a child is not speaking. And then number 11, you are highly conscientious. Yeah, think ahead of time, you plan things out, you think things thoroughly, you are very conscientious, making sure you do the right thing, you follow the rules, you don't step outside the line. And these are something, these actually show up, in children. Is super cute when it shows up in children. For example, it could be that, they're at an age where they can take a stuffy with them to school, but as long as the stuffy would fit in their backpack. And I had a client where the stuffy was just a tiny bit sticking out of the backpack, and the child was like, no, I can't take this with me because it doesn't fit the rules that were given. It doesn't fit in my backpack. And so I thought that was really cute, that even though it was just a few, like a tiny bit that, of the stuffy that was sticking out of the backpack, the child was like adamant that this is not following the rules, so they didn't want to take it. But that actually, continues as an adult until or unless you make the conscientious decision that maybe, not all rules need to be followed to the T. And you can, look to see what the situation entails and just make a judgment of whether you need to follow that particular rule or not. And then number 12 is you feel drained by certain people or situations. And this is especially true if you're in an environment where somebody has a very dark energy, or is not feeling themselves, or that they're very intense. You pick up on that, and that could be potentially draining for you. And, this is totally okay. You don't need to expose yourself to situations like that. If it is in a situation where you can walk away from it or step away from it, do it. Preserve your energy, preserve your just sense of serenity and peace, because your peace is important. Now, there might be situations where you can't do that. Maybe it's at work and it's a colleague of yours, or it's your boss, and you can't do that, but you could definitely excuse yourself, even if it's just a few minutes, to just go and calm yourself down and just make sure your nervous system is more at peace, and then go back into the situation. You could also do your somatic practices, for example, because it only takes, a few minutes to do them. So that might be able to help you with, not getting overstimulated or drained by somebody or a situation. So if you found that you have many of these signs, you might be a highly sensitive person. And if you want to work with me, I offer a complimentary session that you could book through the link in the description. If you like the content, please subscribe to the channel and like the videos. See you in the next one.